So what happened to the Tesla coil?
Basically, J.P. Morgan funded Tesla, and then realized he was doing other stuff than what he was telling him. And then once he realized that he was trying to create free electricity, and he actually lit a light bulb wirelessly, they stopped funding him.
This episode's brought to you by Your Winning Life. If you're serious about your life, start right there. Link is in the description. Welcome to Coffee and Coy. Back to David Dunnigan. Today we're going to talk a little bit about the pyramids. I think it's what you'd like to talk about today.
Yep.
So really, to kick it off, what's the first thing you think about as far as the pyramids? The size of them, how massive they are, or
Me personally, or just like people in general? I think in general, people think they think that it's something that was built for pharaohs to be buried, but they also do realize that there's some phenomenon to it. But when I think about it, the first thing that alarms me is the king's chamber.
that's all I ever heard too, was that they're for the rich pharaohs to be buried in over the centuries. It's where the pharaohs were buried. And then that aligns with the term king's chamber.
Yeah.
So I believe what I remember from school
King
is
Khufu, I think.
I think for
Pharaoh Khufu.
the Great Pyramid Giza, what we're told is that the Khufu, the pharaoh, he built it, and he was to be buried. It was for his burial.
Yeah.
And so the king's chamber, what we're told is that it is to be,
His burial site.
but they've never found
Never.
a king or any evidence that any king or pharaoh has ever been built in any of the pyramids ever.
Ever. And you know what their cover story for that is? Like what what they say is robbers and looters. But you know what's the problem with that? When you rob and loot gold off of somebody, you usually leave the body. And if you do move the body, it's going to be within a couple of feet of that radius where you could take the shit off and leave.
Yeah.
Every body they found was outside of a pyramid.
So it's not that they haven't found any bodies.
They just never was inside the pyramid.
They were in nearby facilities or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's not that the bodies have been dead and decayed for so long there's no trace of them. They did find mummified bodies of pharaohs.
Yeah. If you're a robber and a looter, why would you carry the body all the way that far just to steal the gold off of it?
Are they saying that they moved
They're
the bodies?
they're saying that the reason that they never found a body inside the pyramid is because of robbers and looters.
They moved them.
That's what the mainstream tells you. But this is my thing. If you're going to move a body when you rob and loot it, you're only going to move it to get it out of that tight space, so it's easier to take the stuff off of it. You're not going to move it hundreds of feet.
Okay, but what about the king's chamber suggests that it had a different function?
Oh, lots of things. For instance, there's no hieroglyphs and there's nothing inside of it that gives you a clue of royalty. Like a king is going to be buried somewhere with royal stuff around it. There's going to be hieroglyphics. There's going to be all types of things that when you walk in, you know this is a legit site for a king, and there is none of that in the pyramid. In the pyramid, they say that Khufu was in, which is the Giza pyramid.
So what is in the king's chamber?
It's just brick walls, and there's I guess you could say sarcophagus, what they call it, that was empty. There's no conclusive evidence that anybody was ever buried inside of it.
Huh. But what's the big mystery though there is one of the big things, whether or not that was the purpose or not, which we know that there's lots of scientific evidence that the structure of the pyramid was using the hydropower from the water source underneath. And we know there's
the Tesla theory.
There's a lot of things with the Tesla theory, but before we get that, one of the bigger things is that the massiveness of the pyramid and how they were built. So what we were told, what I was always told, was that oxen and slaves with rope built these pyramids. And why is that? Why is that a problem?
The reason that is a problem is the king's chamber is floored and roofed with granite beams, hundreds of granite beams that weigh upwards to 70 tons.
70 tons.
70 tons, which, if no one knows, that's around 140,000 pounds.
100
upwards to 350 feet in the sky.
Yeah, that's the other big thing about this is that the size of it. They're 350 or so feet in the air.
Yeah.
70-ton beams of granite.
Yeah, but everybody focuses on the outside stones. The outside stones, there's, you know what I'm saying, those are not what, that's not what the phenomenon's about. It's really the king's chamber.
Which is the top portion.
The top portion, yeah. Close to the top. There is stuff above it.
So what's the other theory of how did they get 70-ton stones?
Well, the only theory mainstream science gives you is ropes and leverage.
So what,
and
they
slaves.
got a pulley system that...
Humans. Pulley system with humans. But still, 140,000 pounds.
But you'd have to, the way a pulley works, even if you had, let's say you had 1,000 ox and 10,000 slaves or 10,000 humans hooked to ropes and a pulley system to lift a 70-ton beam 300 feet in the air, it doesn't work because the pulley has to be above, and oxen can't get traction on the ground if they're pulling against something above them. They have to pull level or above it. So you'd have to get all of those oxen and people above that beam. That's
a really good point. And to add to that, the precision. It's so precise. It's super precise.
Because some of these beams are cut. They're not just cookie cutter stones. They're individually cut, specific for a location in that pyramid.
Yeah, they say it's built with 99.98% accuracy.
Tell you one of the things that blows my mind, and since we've been talking about it, that's really got my attention, is that the great pyramids perfectly align with what we would call the summer equinox. So when the sun is, in the northern hemisphere, you got the summer on this side of the equator. In the southern hemisphere, we would have a winter equinox, but they don't call it a winter equinox because on the other side of the equator, those countries have a hotter summer at a different time. So, but these pyramids are aligned when the sun is on that inner circle or on that equinox. It's perfectly aligned with that. So the shadows come across perfectly.
Other pyramids are too as well, right?
I think I haven't got that far into it, but I know the Great Pyramids of Giza are all aligned perfectly with the sun's equinox, and perfectly within like 0.15% degree accuracy of true north, which is insane
accuracy. Think about how accurate you got to be to even make that happen.
What does that matter though? What does that kind of suggest? That suggests to me, because what is our real calendar is based off of the sun and the moon and the stars.
Yeah.
That's how we get our day and our night. That's how we get our seasons. That's how we get our real yearly calendar, is from astrology, from the sun, the moon, and the stars. And for those things to be aligned with that, it tells me that they have a bigger purpose. That is some crazy precision. And the other thing that is suggested is that they're all three aligned with Orion's belt.
Yeah.
So they're not perfectly underneath the stars.
At some point they were.
Well, that's debatable, but they're not. They are a representation of where they are. So if you look at them and where the stars are in the atmosphere, they are perfectly symmetrical in the spacing and alignment with them. Potentially, if they've been here 10,000 years and the Earth has shifted any, or the stars have moved or whatever, then maybe they were perfectly aligned 10, 15,000 years ago.
Which is possible, and which means that they haven't shifted that much in that amount of time, if it's still that close.
Yeah. Well, they're still perfectly aligned with the equinox. So that suggests to me that they were more, they resemble Orion's belt stars, but they're more, the sun is more significant to the pyramids than the stars.
It's probably because the sun provides more energy. That'd be my guess.
Well, and that goes back to the next point there, right? I mean, we've done some studies on that, and I think everything inside the pyramids, what they're made of, the inside stones are electrically conductive material.
They're conductors of electricity.
They are conductors of electricity. And now they don't look this way anymore, but originally they were painted. They were sealed or coated on the outside with a non-conductive material, which suggests that the energy would be moving on the inside and not be able to go to the outside.
Yeah, and there's an aquifer under it, which goes back to the Tesla thing. He had an aquifer under his Tesla tower, and he used the same elements in his Tesla tower that you find in the tunnels of the Great Pyramid.
Now talk about that before, because most people don't know a lot about Nikola. What is the Tesla tower?
The Tesla tower was built by Nikola Tesla to replicate the functions, what he believed was the functions of the pyramid. And ultimately, it led him to lighting a light bulb wirelessly.
How so?
And that's the only reason there's any credit. That's really the only reason there's any validation to this theory. Because just think about it. If Tesla's obsessed with the pyramids, right? And he has a theory on their function. And then he creates something that brings that theory to life, which leads to him lighting a light bulb wirelessly, means he was onto something.
So he built the Tesla tower was producing natural or
it was a
pure energy.
It was pure energy. It was a wireless energy power plant
from nature.
From nature, it all has to do with drawing the natural energy from the earth, and then somehow it goes into the electromagnetic field, and you can spread that throughout and get wireless energy. That's a simple way to say it.
And this Tesla tower was based off of the design of the pyramids, correct?
Yes. It was based off
the technology.
It's a more simple design for sure, but he used the same elements that were found throughout the chambers. He used the same type of aquifer under it. Whatever his theory was on the pyramids, he brought it to life in his own way. He tweaked it, obviously. He probably did stuff slightly different because he didn't use rock. I mean, he didn't use like ginormous rocks. He would have like smaller stuff. Like he would have smaller things of granite, smaller things of rose granite, like different types of granite, all the different types of stones they had inside of the pyramid. I can't remember all of them. It's like specific types of stones that when the water aquifer essentially makes like vibration sounds, frequencies, when it goes to the stones, they resonate a certain type of pitch or frequency, which ultimately it extracts things from it, like hydrogen. You extract hydrogen from the aquifer,
which creates energy.
Which then when you have like the different types of rocks, you'll have like sulfur and other things. When sulfur and hydrogen come together, it creates something. And then there's other things. I can only think of sulfur and hydrogen right now. A scientist could explain it better than me. But when these certain elements or chemicals come together, it causes a chemical reaction inside of these chambers, which ultimately that's the process. It's very complicated. It's something you would have to really examine and study to be able to say off the top of your head because it's so complex.
Yeah.
But in simple terms, you're essentially taking the frequency from the earth, converting it into energy waves of sound, and that's how the aquifer works. Now, once you get into the chambers and stuff, it gets a lot more complicated with the elements and the chemical reactions.
So what I remember seeing was a diagram or a video or something that said that there these tombs, not tombs, the river underneath the pyramids, the aquifer, they were somehow extracting the hydrogen out of that, and those gases would flow up through a chamber walls inside the pyramid up to the king's chamber,
Right.
where there was limestone and quartz and
Create some type of explosion.
some other thing. It was creating some type of a vibration,
Yeah.
which was creating an energy, which everything went to the very tip top. The whole rest, the outside of the pyramid was insulated where you couldn't touch it and die or whatever. But the very top of it, all the energy bolted out of the top of it into the atmosphere.
Right. And what's in the atmosphere? The electromagnetic field.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Without the electromagnetic field, you can't send this shit wirelessly everywhere.
Doesn't work.
Doesn't work. But going back to where everything you were just saying right there, we have Navy ships right now that does very similar things with hydrogen, where it uses
they pull it from the ocean.
it takes the water in, it takes the hydrogen atoms out of the water, and then puts it into a chamber and uses it for engine combustion. So now you don't need gas, you can run on water. So the theory is very valid that we have things that do similar things. And Nikola Tesla lit a light bulb wirelessly, and his whole entire project, Tesla Tower, was basically influenced by the pyramids. There's no coincidence to that.
Yeah, so there's Navy ships that never have to refuel. They pull in water from the ocean and do some type of a hyperbolic or something, and they get the hydrogen energy out of it.
Which is basically the same thing the aquifer does under the pyramid.
And sends it to a combustion chamber.
Right.
Which then powers the whole ship. Which is the theory behind that is that the water under the pyramids, they did the same type of thing, sent it to the king's chamber, and it did some type of an energy. And then I think there's a liquid or something that flowed over into the queen's chamber.
Yeah, it's very complicated.
That had another type of an energy.
A person with the IQ of 100 didn't create this.
Oh no! I say, well, that goes back to how advanced they were and what we're told.
Yeah, because if you really think about American school systems, and you think about what we're taught, you kind of leave with the idea, if you place everything in history, you almost look at it like medieval times.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like you view everything before that the same.
They were just cooking by fire and
and it's just like it's
chewing meat off a bone.
It's too many things and coincidences throughout history that points to that's not true.
Yeah.
And the pyramids is definitely one of them. Because yes, if we put our mind to it now, we could replicate the pyramid. But think about what would it take us to do that? A lot of machinery.
And a lot of focused, it's a lot of specific machinery. Like the typical cranes that you see, like if you go on vacation and they're working on a motel or something, and you got the standard cranes out there, those are huge. They don't lift 70 tons stone.
The average crane lifts about 10 to 60 tons. Well, the average I think is like about 40 tons, but it ranges 10 to 60 tons.
Yeah.
You got to get some special made crane to get higher than that. There is cranes that lift way more than that.
Oh, there are cranes. We do have them.
We do have them.
But it's not.
Think about the money that it takes to create it
and move it around.
The metal that's in that. They wasn't using. When you think about the theory that they tell us of how the pyramids was built, the most advanced thing that they would have had would be a wooden crane. The most advanced thing they would have is a wooden crane with rope.
Which sounds basically sounds kind of silly, really.
This sounds very silly.
I tell you what,
It's almost crazy to think about.
what I found, I was listening to somebody else, some scientist, some historian, and I had never heard this until we started talking about it. I started looking at it a little bit.
Yeah.
There is evidence that liquid mercury was used in the bottoms of the pyramids, which sounds crazy, to cause an anti-gravity type effect.
See, I haven't heard that one.
Which that is and I don't know if this was somebody looking for a way to explain how they were built, but to me it was very interesting to suggest that something to do with electromagnetic field, and mercury can cause a gyro and anti-gravity type of effect.
Right.
Which theoretically, a lot of this is all theory, but theoretically could be how they floated these 70-ton stones 300 feet up in the air.
Yeah, that and the frequency theory, which I think the frequency theory probably makes more sense.
Tell me that one.
Well, think about the water. Well, think about the aquifer. It's using sound frequency. So we know that frequency, when it's tuned up, is very powerful. I'm saying if you turn a stereo all the way up, it'll eventually hurt your ears. If you turn it up too loud.
Mm-hmm.
If you put somebody in a room and turn the frequency up so loud that their body couldn't take it, kill them.
Yeah.
So frequency is very powerful. So I'm thinking they probably had some type of understanding about the electromagnetic field and frequency than we do, because the whole wireless energy theory does not work without the electromagnetic field. It doesn't work without it.
The whole wireless energy without the electromagnetic.
Even the Wi-Fi we have today, it doesn't work without it.
Really?
Nothing. Think about it. The electromagnetic field is what allows energy.
So what is the electromagnetic field? Is that what
let me read the actual definition.
Okay. What I picture in my mind when you say the electromagnetic field and wireless energy doesn't work without it, that suggests to me that we create a wireless frequency and the way that it comes from a tower to a cell phone, as an example, is I always thought they just pulsed it out and it just traveled that way. But you're saying it has to work with the electromagnetic field.
Yeah, because the whole field around us is basically electrically charged. So
that's the light matrix.
It's the light matrix. We have a natural electromagnetic field that comes from the earth.
And then we influence it with like a cell tower.
Yeah, because it gives off its own frequency. So essentially,
and it rides it. So a cell tower gives off a frequency and it rides the electromagnetic field until you receive it on your phone.
Yeah, because between me and you to here, there's energy waves everywhere.
You said something interesting there, that it's a insulator or like a pipe. And what I envisioned when you said that was that when a signal is sent out into the field insulates that signal and then lets it, like a pipe, sends it to it's just sending, it's being transmitted, insulated, which means it doesn't get distorted, it doesn't get lost, it is able to move through until a receiver can pick it up.
Yeah.
So if we go back to the pyramids, and this thing is creating a bolt of never-ending clean energy.
That's where the obelisk and the jets come in. So basically, okay, so the pyramid would generate the electricity.
Mm-hmm.
The obelisk would be placed all around the region that would be capturing the electricity.
It's a repeater.
And then And then the Jed is basically like something that you could capture the energy and kind of like a generator.
So some of the scientists suggest that everything was wired up to the JED locally, and you could power lights and whatever they had back then from some type of an electricity. Everything was powered by the JED, which was getting its power from the source, which was what do you call them, obulus,
Yeah, obvious.
which is the pyramid sending it or whatever. So Billy Carson talks about it. Maybe we'll play that right here.
And then if you have something called a JED, it looks like a Tesla coil, and it's all over Egypt. Everywhere you look in hieroglyphs, it's everywhere. And they have cables coming out of them, electric cables. They were connected to their electroplating devices, light bulbs. Anything that needed electricity was connected to the JED. The JED would capture the ambient electricity from the obelisk. The obelisk were like electric wire poles in your neighborhood, basically, but just doing it all wirelessly. And by that method, they were able to transmit the wireless energy all around the region. And the JEDs would capture that energy, and they can power whatever they wanted.
So there was
obelisk
pyramids, obelisk, and JEDs.
Yeah, the obelisk is what allows the frequency, allows you to extend it.
These areas around these pyramids, around these JEDs, was like a city, and it was like the power plant of the city.
Yeah, and what makes it even more valuable is, or viable, I should say, is that pyramids are placed all around the world. And even though they may be smaller in different sizes, they're all based on the same blueprint. So if one is half the size of the Giza one, it's exactly half the size. If one is 1/3 of the size, it's exactly 1/3 of the size.
And what you mean by every component is scaled?
It's scaled to match.
Because it works the same way.
It works the exact same way.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So what happened to the Tesla coil?
Basically, J.P. Morgan funded Tesla, and then realized he was doing other stuff than what he was telling him. And then once he realized that he was trying to create free electricity, and he actually lit a light bulb wirelessly, they stopped funding him. And then eventually he ran out of money. He couldn't pay his bills, and they tore it all down.
So J.P. Morgan was financing Nikola Tesla.
Yeah.
And Nikola Tesla had told him that he was doing some type of other project, but really he was working on this natural free energy. And when J.P. Morgan found it out, he shut him down.
What all did he own?
He owns J.P. Morgan owned everything. J.P. Morgan owned the electric wire, like copper wire companies that was making the cables that would take electricity across the nation.
Yeah.
He owned the rubber corporations to where for installations of wire. He owned the railroads, like the 12, I think it was 12 major railroads or 10 major railroads, whatever it was. He owned all of the major railroads that were transporting like the timbers for power poles all over the country. J.P. Morgan owned everything, and he was getting rich off of the electric grid that we use basically still to this day.
Yeah.
And Nikola Tesla was coming up with a wireless version
It would be free.
that would be free for everyone.
So that causes a big issue.
Well, it basically that got him blacklisted, and he was done. He died broke. But what does it mean if he got that theory or that technology from the ancient pyramids? And another thing I saw was that when you zoom out from a pyramid site, it looks like a computer circuit board. Have you saw that?
Yeah, it's very freaky because it resembles it so much that it raises your question: is the pyramids dispersed out all over the planet, and all the stuff that's built around them and stuff? Is it a ginormous like power grid?
So a gigantic power grid all over the planet, free wireless power, the whole world.
The question is, why would they want to hide that from us?
Greed.
But think about it. If we knew that was a fact at one point, right? How many people would feel comfortable paying a power bill knowing that we could have had free energy 100 years ago?
Yeah, we are a slave to the. As long as you have to, and I won't get into government and taxes, but let's say that we solve the governmental tax problem. But let's say there's no taxes. There's no property taxes. There's no sales tax. There's no income tax. There's no taxes. We'll get rid of that. You still have what? An electric bill. So you can't live free.
Nope. Unless you want to give up all the good stuff and go live in the woods.
Other than the nuclear power plants that basically we get all our power from, what options do we have? We got solar and we have wind, which I don't know if you've seen this. The footprint of a solar panel they're going around, and I won't say what I think about it being a good idea or not, but they're going around and they're trying to get people to buy these solar packages that go on your rooftop. And the idea is that you won't have a power bill anymore, but they want you. We were going to have to finance like $40,000 or $50,000 worth of solar panels, and it was only going to generate enough power to cover like 70% of my current uses. So I was still going to have a power bill at 30%, and I was going to have to pay for $50,000 worth of solar panels that in 25 years I'm going to have to replace.
Yeah.
So it's not to me, it wasn't a good option.
I don't think solar energy will ever be 100% efficient. Now, it will lower costs.
But it takes like a field. Like if you had 10 acres of solar panels, you could run your home and your buildings and things like that. But just to cover your whole roof in solar panels, which is a very expensive thing nowadays, doesn't really generate enough energy to offset a power bill. But what's the point of that? The point is the pyramids were thought to be wireless energy for the world. So we don't really have any option other than paying a power bill.
Yeah.
To this day.
Yeah, but if Tesla would have had his way, it wouldn't be like that. If they would have funded him with his brilliance, lighting a light bulb wirelessly would be one of his least accomplishments. But since they stopped funding him, that's probably one of his highest accomplishments. So
let's talk about what happened to the pyramids. So the oldest archaeological place we know of, I think, is in Turkey, and I can't remember the name of it. I won't say the name of it right, but it was back. We think it was back in like 9,500 or 9,000 BC, and I think the Stonehenge was around 3,000 BC, and the pyramids are somewhere around 2,600 BC.
Yeah, which is weird because for a long time the date that was agreed upon was 4,500.
Is that right?
That's what it was agreed upon for a long time.
Well, either way, what happened to that civilization? What destroyed the pyramids and the people? What destroyed that? What happened?
What destroyed everything around there except for the pyramids?
Yeah, but they've got huge water damage, and they've got
there's evidence from the damage of the pyramid. Like whatever happens when there's a high pressure of water, like a super high pressure of water, there's evidence on the pyramid of that. So they know that at some point a large amount of water at high pressure, which would be a high speed, came in contact with it.
So, which we talked about this. What year was the worldwide flood, or what we Christians would say the flood of Noah? What do you think?
I think they were there way before the flood.
You think the pyramids were there way before the flood?
Yeah.
And so the erosion and things we see on the pyramid is probably from the flood.
I mean, if it has evidence that a large mass of water was hit it at one point, that tells me that most likely. Because you can't, I don't 100% believe in carbon dating, but you can't carbon date rock. So, which is actually a good thing in this case. Since you can't carbon date rock, that means that you can't, there's nothing that can really mess with the age of it.
Can't get it wrong.
Can't get it wrong, yeah. And if we go off of what mainstream scientists tells us, then that means you have to believe that the Egyptians built it. If it was built at that time period, that means that the Egyptians did it. Because that's when the Egyptians were there. That's why they think it was built around that time.
Which I've always heard the Egyptians built the pyramids.
Yeah.
Now there's theories that they just reused what was there.
They came across it and it became a part of their culture. I mean, the Egyptians were one of the very first civilizations that documented stuff very frequently. Like from their time period, they documented almost everything. There's nothing in their documentations that says they built it. You would think there would be some remnants of them building it. There is no remnants of that. So there's absolutely no evidence that they had anything to do with building of the pyramids.
And we know the Sphinx face has been redone.
Right. And
the face of the Sphinx doesn't fit the actual size of the head. And by looking at it, archaeologists know that the Sphinx head has been redone, correct?
Right.
Which means that it's actually an older structure than when the Egyptians touched it.
Exactly. So if there's no evidence that they built it, and we don't think that they had the machinery to lift some of the stones in the king's chamber, the only logical explanation is that they didn't build it. They came across it, and it was probably there long before they were there. And the fact that it has evidence that pressurized water came in contact with it means it was probably there when the flood happened.
And is it the footprint of the Great Pyramid like 13 acres?
13 acres.
And I've seen the Eiffel Tower. I think the footprint of the Eiffel Tower is, I don't know, it's like so many blocks or something. It is crazy big.
What would you say, probably 5 acres?
Yeah, but I'm thinking that I've never seen the pyramid, but I'm thinking the footprint is massively bigger than the Eiffel Tower.
And on top of that, they brought these stones from hundreds of miles away. Like some of these stones they had to go get, like the specific stones on the inside, was nowhere even near where they were at. So they went and got them and brought them back with no type of machinery or some type of technology.
I would love to see, and you heard me say this earlier, and I'm not trying to be facetious, but I would like to know how much horsepower, because we measure power in horsepower, like you get a 350 horsepower engine, which in the old days that would mean it took 350 horses to equal its pulling power. I wonder how many horsepower it would take.
We can calculate that up.
To move us 70 ton. I'm talking about lifting it 300 feet just to move it at all.
I'm not sure how you would calculate it up, but getting that amount of weight so high in the sky is the part that we can't explain. I mean, yeah, it's kind of hard to explain how you drag stones hundreds of miles. You're just gonna drag stones with oxes for hundreds of miles.
So
that's pretty hard to believe too. But lifting 70-ton beams 300 feet in the sky is pretty. It's pretty insane to think.
The illustration we're given is they would build ramps up on the outside of the pyramid that kind of went up, and they would drag it up and up and up on a ramp to get it in place.
Strong ass wood.
But if this thing was 13 acres. You know how big a ramp would have to be?
But do you know how strong the wood would have to be? You've seen the depictions that they show in like the textboops, right? It's
Yeah,
like
where they
these little skimpy pieces of wood.
a little wooden popsicle stick frame. They just put some popsicle sticks and pulled 70 tons up to the top with some ropes and some oxen.
At some point, logic has to kick in. There's something more to the architecture of the pyramid. And even though that they think an earthquake has shifted some of it where it's not as perfect as it used to be, even with that, even though there's theories that it wasn't an earthquake, let's just say that it was an earthquake. We know that it's been shifted somehow because there's cracks in some of the stones and some of the alignments are slightly off. Even with that, it's still at 99.98% accuracy.
To the
So
equinox and to the true north.
Right.
It's perfect.
It's still almost perfect. So to think that humans with a low IQ and ropes and leverage and sticks, or even if you had some type of strong wood, it's bizarre to believe, and it gives us a very deep. I like how this one guy said it. He's like, we need to give our ancestors more credit.
So, but there's other theories than ancestors, though. There's aliens.
Yeah.
There's
fallen angels.
There's giant. There's all kinds of other theories that people lean towards to say how these things were built.
Yeah. I think the two most valid theories is either the humans who did build it had some type of frequency technology that we don't understand, or we were influenced by the fallen angels, which a lot of people will say are aliens. So either the aliens or fallen angels, which I'm going to use them interchangeably. A lot of people don't agree, but we can either say aliens or the fallen angels either assisted us. Those are the two most viable things. Because whether you're a religious person or a non-religious person, we know that some other type of entity, whether it be an angel or an alien, was here with us here at one point. No matter which side,
are still here with us
are
today.
still here with us today. No matter which way you look at it, we know that something was here. So either they helped us do it, or maybe they did it on their own, or we just were a lot smarter than we give ourselves credit for back then. Which either way, if they influenced us, if we were around them, we seen things and probably knew things. Either way, even if we didn't build it.
What have we seen of frequency testing? What have we seen, like, the military has a frequency.
It's like that machine. It's like that frequency gun thing that stops you in your tracks. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, so they've got a frequency weapon.
Yeah, basically what it does is the frequency. When it shoots you with the frequency, it discombobulates your mind, and you just stop.
But they can kill you with it.
They can kill you with it. Yeah. I don't know exactly how it works, but I do know that the best way to visualize frequencies in your mind is to think about a sound. You can get like sand or even with water, and different sounds will make different patterns in the water when the sound is magnified to it.
Oh, that's true.
You've seen that before,
I've
right?
seen that.
Or you've seen like the sand will make different patterns when different sounds hit it.
Yeah.
So that just that's a visual representation of the different frequencies coming from the sound.
What else do we know about frequency?
We know that frequency. We know that each frequency has a different vibration.
That's what frequency is, though, right? It's a certain speed of vibration.
So I guess the best way to say it is frequency is energy vibrating differently.
Different frequencies are different speeds of vibrations.
Right. Which is all energy. Everything's energy. Energy never goes away, it just transfers. And they did like a little test on a particle where they took in the quantum physics, they took a particle and split it in half. And anything they did to electrically charge this particle, this would have the exact same reaction. Which proves that once energy is intertwined, no matter when you separate it, it's still connected electrically. Physically, it's separate, but electrically, it's still connected. And particles have proven that. But to tie this all back into what we're really talking about is, ever who built the pyramids understood energy, frequency, and vibrations. And that goes back to Tesla as well, because that was one of Tesla's most famous quotes. If you want to understand the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. And if he's the one who cracked the pyramids and created wireless electricity, he has some type of credence that we should be listening to.
So if you want to understand the universe,
think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration.
And so if we take what we now know about the pyramid, what we think about the pyramid, the energy would be what? The water underneath it.
Well, you got to think all of that working in unison is what creates the energy. It's not...
What's the energy source?
The earth.
Which it's either the sun or it's the water.
It's things that come from the earth. It's doing it. Everything in the pyramid is natural.
Because we got two. You basically got two constant sources of root energy in the pyramid. It's the sun above, or the water below.
It's lined up perfectly with the equator. There's a water aquifer under it. You have all these natural elements in it that create chemical reactions.
Oh, that's what you mean by the other parts of the earth.
Because
all the stones and all of that come from the earth.
It's all natural. It's doing everything from nature.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's why.
And generating wireless electricity.
It sounds crazy. All of that stuff working together. There is no credit to it if Nikola Tesla doesn't light a light with wires. That's what gives so much validation to the theory. And every other theory, when they talk about how the pyramids was built, they completely disregard the King's Chamber. They only talk about the other rocks that are like 5,000 pounds, 10,000 pounds.
Yeah.
Which still is crazy to think that you drug hundreds. Well, there's millions of rocks actually. The pyramid's made out of it's like what?
2.3 million.
2.3 million. So they drug millions of rocks hundreds of miles away.
No way.
With just animals and humans?
No way.
Like
and some of them 70 tons.
And some of them are 70, which are hundreds of them. But just think about that. Even if you take the 70 tons out, millions of rocks that were not even in the region.
And they were multi-ton.
Yeah. Even if they were just 5 tons.
I think the pyramids are almost historically blacklisted. Yeah. Like they've got this one little pinpoint story about pyramids in all of history that anybody's taught. And they get no time, they get no focus. They don't get, there's no energy put into knowing and teaching about the pyramids. And that's probably intentional.
What makes you think it's intentional?
Well, what kind of validates that point to me is I tried for 15 or 20 minutes, and I know it's there, the information's there, but there's going to be a lot of manual effort. I tried for about 15 or 20 minutes with multiple searches. All I wanted to see was the 15 largest pyramids in the world and where they were on the earth. I just wanted to see a map of that. Nothing would show it to me. I mean,
for whatever reason, they don't want anybody to know where they actually are.
I mean, they'll tell you where they are. You can find them, but it's like
there's no map that shows you all of them at once.
There's no just a holistic view of it or whatever. That just because what I wanted to see was because I just understood that the Great Pyramids of Giza are on the summer equinox.
You wanted to see how they all align together.
Yeah, I wanted to see if the other ones were also on equinoxes, or were they on the winter equinoxes in the other hemisphere, on the other side of the equator, and where they all were on the planet.
Yeah.
And I couldn't find it.
Yeah, I saw this one thing one time where, because you can look it up. They have like the electromagnetic field kind of mapped out. throughout the whole Earth. And I think I saw something one time where some of the pyramids are aligned in certain spots where the electromagnetic field is stronger than other spots.
Oh.
So like a lot of people say this, when you go to the pyramids, you can feel the difference of the energy around it.
Really?
Yeah, almost everybody who goes there says that. It's almost like the energy there is stronger. You know, like when you touch a doorknob and it shocks you, that's because like there's a buildup in you and it kind of shocks you. It's almost like you'll feel that. It's like that buildup is so strong you can feel the difference.
Even though it's not in use today, and basically
it's because of where it's at,
or its history, where it's at, and what it has been used for in the past still has a resonance of it or something.
Yeah.
But didn't we see somewhere that it looks like they were intentionally destroyed from within?
Yes.
Some civilization or some people, some group of people on a certain timeline decided to destroy the pyramids from within.
And the reason people say that, because the mainstream story for that is the earthquake. But when you go inside and look at where it's cracked in a certain way that couldn't have been an earthquake. It's cracked in certain spots that seems intentional in the spots.
Which was, they said, explosions.
Yeah, explosions. So if only intentional spots are cracked, it seems that it was done intentionally.
And if it is an ancient giant power plant and you don't want it to be used, this is complete conspiracy theory, but you would go in with a bomb or something and set it off inside some of the main chambers and destroy the bigger parts of it so it can't be used.
It could be that, or it could be someone tried to use it and didn't do it right, and it's another way it could have happened. Like everything was flowing right, but the parts that should, like when the chemical reactions happened, maybe they didn't calibrate it right or whatever.
It malfunctioned.
It malfunctioned, and that could be a possibility too. But I want to say this while it's on my mind. According to mainstream, even if you use mainstream science, according to mainstream science, the Great Pyramid was built in 259 BC. And the flood happened in 234 BC. And 259 was before 234.
Yeah, 20.
So the
2590, you mean?
Yeah. So 2590 happened before 2348, which means that the pyramids were built before the
pyramids
flood.
were here and they survived the Great Flood.
Even if you use the mainstream. So even though I don't think they're 100% right, I think the pyramids were probably built before that. Even with that, they still survived the flood. The flood still happened after, 200 years after, according to them.
What does that tell us about?
That tells us that they're uniquely built. They're built with such strength. Because if we had a major flood like that now, can you imagine what it would do to our cities? Just think about what a hurricane does to our cities. Imagine a great flood. Hurricane just destroys our cities. Whatever parts it hit. Think about North Carolina, what it did in North Carolina. Can you imagine if we had a massive flood across the entire planet? And somehow the pyramids survived.
And another thing I found interesting was that it said that most every pyramid that we have found around the globe are all built in similar fashion and by basically a same basic design. And they suggest from civilizations that had no contact with each other, which cannot be true.
Well, that goes back to the, what's his name? Thoth. Because they say that Thoth was the architecture. But Thoth would have had fallen angel DNA in him. If you're going by the accounts of religion, he would have been like what, maybe 3 generations after fallen angels and humans had mixed.
I don't know a lot about him.
So basically, Thoth was an Egyptian.
Well, let me ask you a question.
They say he's the smartest Egyptian and the greatest architect ever.
Let me ask this question. is it proven that a person named Thoth actually existed?
Yes.
It is 100% someone named Thoth
Yes.
really did
That
live.
is 100%. Now, him designing the pyramids is not 100%.
And whether or not he was
He was an Egyptian god.
whether or not he was a demigod or not is not proven. We don't really know. But
We
he
don't,
wasn't.
we don't really know. But
Was he worshipped?
he was one of the few that didn't want to be worshipped. He was like actually the only one that didn't want to be worshipped.
What did he want?
He just wanted to basically build things. So that's where it comes in that they think he designed the pyramids. I'm not sure. I don't know how I feel. I mean, I don't know how I feel. The phenomenon of the pyramids is so crazy that the only thing that makes sense is that something of very high intelligence did it. So I don't really disagree with. I don't agree or disagree with the theories. I disagree when someone belittles their phenomenon. So if you want to say humans did it with great knowledge that we don't have, that's Bible. If you want to say that the fallen angels did it, that's Bible. Because we know the fallen angels were here. According to religious texts, every religion you look at, they were here. No matter you look at the Greeks, you look at ancient Sumeria, the Babylonians,
The Anunnaki, or the
Anunnaki.
the Bible says the Anak.
the Anak. So
And the book of Enoch calls them the Watchers.
the Watchers.
Which are, they left their initial estate, their original estate, which the book of Jude talks about. And they were cursed because of that.
So we know they were here. Whether they influenced it or not, I'm not sure. It's very viable.
Tell me more about Thoth. What else did Thoth build?
According to Egyptian mythology, Thoth is credited with creating the art of writing, inventing of the calendar, and essentially laying the foundation for knowledge and learning by developing language and the system of hieroglyphics, making him the scribes of the gods and a key figure in recording history and divine order. He is also associated with the moon and the concept of time measurement. I didn't know all that. That's pretty crazy.
The moon and time measurement.
Time measurement.
So let me say something there. What we know from recent research, that historically the moon was our calendar.
So he invented the lunar calendar.
The lunar calendar.
According to the Egyptians, he's the one who invented the lunar calendar.
It makes me wonder if the pyramids were not built for humans.
I don't think so. I think, if you want my honest 100%, what I think it was the fallen angels trying, after they got cast out, trying to find a way
to get out of here,
to get back.
And
once they couldn't, it probably, because once they realized they had to make this their home before the flood happened, because they were living here before the flood happened for thousands of years.
What does it mean they were living here?
They were here physically. It says they came from the spirit to the physical.
Where are they now?
That is to be debated. Either they're locked up or they're still venturing around.
Well, I think the Bible talks about, we always get on what the Bible says, but what the Bible talks about, they are bound in chains until the judgment day or something like that.
I'm about to say, are they all bound in chains?
And the other thing the
thing is, what is the difference between the fallen angels and regular demons?
I don't know.
This is my thing. Did the term demons, fallen angels existed before people called them demons, right? That happened first. They fell from heaven first before demons were ever a thing.
There was a great war in heaven, and the devil and his angels were cast out.
So before people called them demons, they were the fallen angels first, right?
Yeah, I think it's interchangeable.
So it's the same thing. So a demon is just a angel turned against God.
I think so.
Right. So,
and there's different ranks, there's different sizes, there's different degrees or whatever. I've never heard anybody say that they were physically living here before the flood. Never heard that.
Well, that's what the Sumerians say.
Is that what they say?
Look at the hieroglyphics. When they depict the Anunnaki, they look like angels. You don't just draw something without seeing it.
Well, one thing that aligns with what you're saying about them physically living here, we know that they were the Watchers or the fallen. They were basically condemned by God for sleeping with or raping human women, which is a physical act, and that's where the Nephilim come from. So they left their spiritual state and came to a physical state and were interacting with the physical state in humans.
That's what I was going to say with your point right there. Human women means they were present in the physical.
It had to be here.
So even though the Bible might not clearly say it, it indicates it multiple times throughout. But let me read this. It says, according to most religious interpretations, not all demons are chained in hell right now. The understanding is that Satan and other demons are still able to roam earth and tempt humans, meaning they are not completely restrained in hell. So it seems like at some point they were fully physical. And well, maybe not all, but even if it was all, it seems like it's not fully a restraint. They still are able to roam somehow.
Or the biggest ones, the most threatening ones are chained, and the other ones are still leaking around.
Yeah, but to tie all this back into the pyramid, because I don't want to get too far off topic. If we have seen things like if there's been hundreds, there's been UFO sightings for hundreds of years. People have swore they've seen it, and people are just, oh, they're crazy. And now we have hundreds of UFO sightings from people inside the government who are basically trying to get the government to admit that they know what's going on. People inside the Air Force trying to get the government to admit that they know what's going on, which they've gotten nowhere with that. But the fact that we've seen things like that, and if you believe that we've found things in these ancient cities and reverse engineered it, gives credence to these ancient civilizations were very, very advanced. I don't think there's some angel some fallen angel controlling these UAPs that we see, and I don't think it's some alien. I think it's reverse engineered technology. It's like a drone, some super advanced thing that we reverse engineered. We found it and then we reversed it.
Well, logically, to me, from a tech.
And you remember the UFO fallings in the 80s, right? When the cornfields and everybody was going crazy about it?
Yeah, and then they said people were just out there making them with boards and stuff, which there's no way.
Why would so many people go crazy about it? They swear they've seen it. Why would people do that? Why would you swear you've seen something? For what reason? To sound crazy to everybody? I want to sound crazy to everybody, so I'm just going to swear I've seen this. That doesn't make no sense.
Yeah, the way they've explained it away, I thought years ago when I saw they pictured a guy had a rope on like a 2x6, and he was going out there and just taking a step and just crushing the corn down. Because if you've seen these things, they were massive designs, and they were saying, well, somebody could do that. But I'm like, well, how would you do it in such a precise way without being above it, having some type of design or something? So it doesn't really make sense. But what I was thinking of when you said that about a drone, from a technology perspective or a technological approach, to me, like, we know human limitation, but if we have the ability to make a UFO or a jet or some type of a gyro machine that we know how to make it go 5,000 miles an hour, stop on a dime.
Yeah.
And we can control it from a keyboard, not be in it. And that thing can be filming, or it can be moving things, or it can just be a transporter. You know, we can strap things down like metal resources or whatever it might be, machinery or military or weaponry, and transport it instantaneously. in a way that humans couldn't survive. As long as we can control it, we wouldn't care. We don't have to put a human in it if I can control it from outside.
Exactly.
I still want to be able to go 5,000 miles an hour.
Exactly.
I don't need to be in it to do it.
Yeah. And the fact that
Which we're way off point, but I'm interested.
well, it all still ties into what we're talking about, because think about the speed in which technologies went over the last 40 years. And the only thing that makes sense is that we came across some ancient technology and reverse engineered it. And once we figured it out, we just had this ginormous boost in technology. And even though I think they give us lesser versions of what they really have, the jump in technology in the last 40 years is undeniable. Like, it's a massive jump.
We're talking about the day. Less than 100 years ago, there was no computer network on the planet. No text message, no cell phone, no computer sending an email, nothing 100 years ago. Now look where we are. I mean, you can do anything. The whole world's connected. The whole world's one big network now.
And the very first UFO sighting was in 1947. Just think about from the 50s till now, the technological jump.
No, it's insane.
It's not a coincidence that millions of people were seeing strange objects flying back in the 50s, in the late 40s. It's not a coincidence. This is probably around the time where they figured it out. They had first reverse engineered it.
Well, that's what Area 51 is, a military test site.
Yeah, but do you think that they really told us all the stuff they found when they dug up all these ancient cities? Think about all the ancient cities they've dug up over the last 200-300 years. You think they told us all the stuff they found?
Of course not. And I seen a guy was talking about that what was said was when we invaded Iraq, that the Marines, one of the first thing they did was went into a museum or an old archaeological history place and stole artifacts from the temples or pyramids in that area.
What was the reason for them stealing the artifacts, you know?
So it goes back to technology and learning from ancient civilizations. And that all ties back to when you zoom out on a side of a pyramid, it looks like a motherboard.
Yeah, and not just the pyramids. Lots of ancient structures resemble microprocessors.
What does that mean to you?
To me, it means that the theory of wireless electricity is very, very, very viable. Think of all the pyramids and all the ancient structures, and you zoom all the way out, and how it all connects like a motherboard.